What's up, everybody? So today's video is going to be a little bit different than what we usually do here on the channel. I figured it's time to kind of put a discussion video out there, and we're going to be discussing things that you should remember when playing Blue. So if you're familiar with the channel and you're familiar with all the gameplay that I do and all the testing that I do with the One Piece TCG, you will know that Blue is the one deck that gives me the most problems. Whether it's Doflamingo or Blurple Croc or even Ivankov can give me issues. It's just one of those things that it doesn't mesh well with the way my mind works personally. And this could be the same for you. It just seems that everyone tends to have some sort of color that doesn't quite mesh well for their play style. And I think it's okay to say that red's pretty straightforward. It's usually a big powerhouse. You're just pushing with a lot of power and going in. Purple, I still have some issues with purple, but it's just knowing how to allocate your Dawn in proper timing for the most part. Green is a lot of board control. Black is also kind of board control, as well as decreasing your opponent's characters to then, as I said, control the board, but also knowing when to properly do it. But out of all the decks I've played, all the blue decks have given me issues on knowing how to properly run them. So there are three main points I want to go across today that just kind of elaborate on things to kind of remember if you're going to try out blue decks or use them. So when you're using things like Doflamingo or Blurple Croc, you don't always have to use the ability. The abilities on these leaders are very helpful, and especially with Blurple Croc, it does help get cards to the hand. With Doflamingo, it helps to facilitate bodies onto the board for free if you stack your deck properly with things like Corona or the blocker Doflamingo, which are staple pieces in blue decks in general. So, you want to make sure to stack properly, but also know when to properly utilize Dawn resources to use those abilities, because if you allocate Dawn to those leaders to try to pop off their abilities every time, you're taking away from the resources to set up your board and to better control the game state. So it's really big issue that I have with blue decks, where I try to essentially always pop off with the ability, and it's not always necessary. So know your proper timing. It goes with any deck, but with blue especially, because they have a low power ceiling. So the next point I want to get into is to know your matchups, because with some matchups it's better to kind of control the board and play a little bit of a longer grind game, whereas some matchups it's better to just forget about their characters and their boards completely and push to the face and essentially try to race them. I know with Blurple Croc, when I was looking at Los Fiends videos for reference on how to play the deck and how to build the deck, every time he played Zoro, it was a big thing that it was a race. There was no need to necessarily concern yourself with the board all the time, whereas it was just defend, 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 push to the face, get their life down, get the game over with, walk away with the dub. It was something that honestly I kind of got caught up with when I was trying to get my footage, and I think a big issue I had with trying to play with the deck, because I got caught up in that mind state of push to the face constantly. And there are certain matchups where that's just not the case. When I was playing Law, which I played Law a lot when I was trying to get footage for the compilation video, towards the final day of getting footage for that video, I finally stopped trying to just push to the face for Law and started focusing on the board, because the red-green Law leader, it needs a full board to pop off its leader ability. Now, yes, it does have the 6-drop blocker that kind of does the same ability of rotating out characters and getting bodies onto the board, but when I started focusing on the board more, I had an easier time dealing with it. I obviously didn't walk away with a dub against them, but it made it to where it wasn't such a blowout. So with Doflamingo, I really couldn't tell you. That's just a deck that since I've gotten into One Piece, I've tried to learn, and it just doesn't ever work out for me, I really need to put some time behind that deck, because it's a deck that I really want to play, and I've watched tons of videos and I've tried to learn about it, but every time I go in with it, I tend to want to play how I play other decks, and the playstyle with those decks versus the Doflamingo deck is completely different. Doflamingo is a beast all in itself that works entirely different than most other decks do, and it's a lot of setting up and going into my third point, having an intuitive premonition, I guess is the way to put it, as far as what you're going to do. You have to think 1, 2, 3 turns ahead, as you do with most decks with playing on curve and things like that. But with Doflamingo specifically, in the way that you stack your deck and its leader ability to reveal and play a 7 Warlords type, it's very important to have it in your head to know what's not being caught up with the current turn always. Yes, you need to focus on what's happening in front of you in the here and now, but you also have to keep in the back of your mind, okay, this is how I stack my deck, this is how I want to go into things. And with Blurple Croc, it's similar, because you do have things like Spada that let you stack the deck and know what you're going into, and also knowing and remembering what ratios you have of what cards, so that if you do have to place on bottom to try to get to a specific card, you kind of have a better idea of whether or not you have that chance to get into it or not. So it's just, these are things that I tend to forget when I play any type of blue variant. Ivankov is a little bit different. It's definitely a sense of you're drawing a lot more because of the ability and the events and the abilities that come off of a lot of the characters that you run in Ivankov. But even then, you're still running Perona, you're still stacking your deck, and you still have to keep up with exactly where you stand for what you're going for. So the 3 things to remember are, you don't always have to use your leader's ability, you need to know your matchups, so spend time learning the deck, catering the deck, and doing the exact same thing that I will be doing in the future whenever it comes to blue, and really learning your matchups and how to go forward with the playstyle for the match, and to use an intuitive kind of premonition. It's really not the best way to put it, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say, to think ahead, essentially. Think ahead and know what your next move is going to be. And I think that's kind of a staple thing for the TCG anyways, but with blue decks, especially with the stacking and going into certain things, it's easy sometimes to go to stack your deck and be like, okay, well, I'll draw that on next turn, but you're playing something like Blurple Croc and you forget that, oh, I just played Spada to stack my deck, and now my leader abilities to pop off, and you may have put something on your deck you were going to draw next turn and then try to draw into off an ability or something, versus remembering that, oh, I'm about to draw, so you could have stacked in a different order. But all in all, I hope I got my point across. I know I'm super new to One Piece still, even this far in. I've really trying to learn. I'm really trying to get better at it and understand things better, and I just kind of figured these are some issues that I have with a specific color of deck, no matter who the leader is, and I thought maybe I would share a little bit on that. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found something helpful. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and help us grow the community. Also, if you liked it, hit the like button. It helps tremendously. Let me know down below other tips for players, whether it's for blue or any other deck, and also feel free to let me know, what decks give you issues, what play styles aren't necessarily your niche and you kind of try to avoid if possible. So until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.